everybody, Dr. JP Guidry here. I want to hop on and just kind of share a little bit about myself and some of the struggles that I kind of run into, that my clients run into, and some that I personally share as well and have an understanding of. So a big limitation to a lot of my clients being able to train consistently, eat right consistently, put in the work consistently is time. And so personally, while access for me, I pretty much work inside of a gym in my facility. Access for me is a little easier than most people, but that's something that we talk about when I talk to my clients, is how can we remove some of those barriers between them and working out. And some of that may be doing more stuff at home, buying more equipment at home. On the flip side, some of it is getting out to the gym actually helps. So going somewhere and working out versus that convenience, some people that works. But so one thing we talk about is how many barriers can we remove between you and being able to consistently do your workout. But a little bit about myself is, I'm a single father. I have 50-50 custody of my children. So when they're with me, they're my sole responsibility. So half of my days, 2 weekdays every week, and then every other Friday through Sunday, I'm fully responsible for them. So I do have some help from my parents, and I'm very thankful for that and grateful for that. But for the most part, getting them to and from school, getting them to and from things like gymnastics and sports practices and any other extracurriculars is on me. So that time and energy when they're with me is solely focused on them. And it's fine. I love being with my kids. I love doing those things, and I'm willing to, sacrifice anything else for that. Secondly is my job. So while I do work inside of a gym, I spend most of my day working, between my in-person clients and my online clientele and servicing them and making sure they have everything they need. Is pretty much a full-time job, but I also work a second job as a home health physical therapist. So between the two jobs, on an average week, I probably put in somewhere between, on an easy week, probably 50 hours, on a heavy week, closer to 60 hours, depending how much I do on the weekends. So again, for me, unfortunately, at this time in my life, that's a necessity from a financial standpoint, to kind of make up from some losses I've had through my divorce, through COVID, through some poor decision making on my part in that time frame, and just trying to have to get my life back on track and put myself in a good position for what's best for my future and the future of my kids. And so hopefully one day I get to a point, sooner rather than later. I don't have to do that, but again, that's the reality, and so that is a necessary priority for me from a financial standpoint, and so that's another hurdle I have to personally work around. So most of my workouts are done very early in the morning when I don't have my kids. Most of them are done when I do have my kids, is if I can work in a break during my day and get a quick workout in at my clinic, at my facility, or after hours, something like that. Because generally my, from about 7 to 5 to 6, I'm pretty straight working, busy between the two jobs, and when I don't have my kids, even later on some of those days. So some of this comes with pre-planning. So planning out my week, my goals every week are to get 4 hour-long full weight training workouts in, and then 2 to 3 30-minute, whether it's recovery, whether it's going for a walk, whatever that may be. Most weeks I find a way to hit that. Not all weeks I do. And if I don't, I try not to beat myself up. I try to just kind of give myself some grace and say, okay, didn't hit it this week, we'll get back on it next week, and try to get at least something done. If I can't get 60 minutes, maybe I'll get 30 minutes and get my main lifts in or something like that. And things happen. Kids get sick. My kids were out of school for 2 weeks because of a COVID exposure in their class, so that put a strain on a lot of things for those 2 weeks. So I just figured out a way to make it work, and kind of said, all right, I'm probably not going to hit those workout numbers for these weeks. Same thing goes for my eating. I've been working with Coach Mike Gorski of MG Fit to kind of help get things back on track. My biggest takeaways from the first, I think about 3 weeks in with him, is getting back to tracking. I use MyFitnessPal. Getting back to tracking things really kind of makes me more aware of how much I'm taking in, what I'm taking in, and maybe making better choices because of that. And how much I need to plan and prep. So just as I plan my workouts, I definitely need to do a better job of planning and prepping my meals, and definitely something I try to help my clients with, doing the same thing. If you have a busy week, taking that decision making out of the moment, when generally you're going to probably make an easier, quicker, maybe not as healthy, not as nutritious decision than if you have that meal ready for you to go, and that's your easy decision. So doing things like that from the nutrition side definitely help. Dinners, when I have my kids, I'm trying to cook something easy, and maybe usually I'll do something for them, do something for myself. Depends on what it is and what they're eating. The struggle for me is not picking on their plate what they don't eat, and if I cook something, macaroni or something for them, not eating the rest of the pot after they eat. So some of it is just kind of me taking a little more self-control over those decisions. Lastly is sleep. We'll throw in sleep, stress management, recovery, which by far is my biggest weak point. I'm not very good at it, never been very good at it. Sleep and I have never had a really good relationship. I've always said I'm not a really good sleeper. It's someone asked me, if you've ever been asked what's the superpower you'd like to have, mine would be to be able to get fully rested without having to sleep. Just not a good sleeper, never have been. It's worse the more stressed I am, the more anxiety I have, which is something else that I struggle with controlling. So I have a bedtime routine. I try to stick to it. I'd say honestly I'm maybe 50% successful of doing that. When I do, it can be a little better, but not always. I try to limit screen time, try to wear blue blocker glasses, try to get off social media, get off things that are going to kind of get me wired up, and read or meditate or do something that's going to calm me down and kind of slow down my nervous system. But sometimes I'm working or doing things up until the time I should go to bed, which doesn't lend itself to better sleep. So I do supplement with medications and supplements and things like that as needed, but I generally I don't sleep well. I very rarely get a 7-8 hour consistent night of sleep. And a lot of that is dictated by my poor management of stress, between work, kids, finances. That's tends to be a roller coaster. Has been more heightened lately than not. And so my sleep struggles, my recovery struggles, I felt that this week when I had to pretty much quit a leg workout into my first set of my first heavy movement, because I just hit a wall. I couldn't move the weight, a weight that I have lifted a number of times. And so, it was after a night of 4 hours of sleep. My son had woken up 3:30 in the morning, and I just never went back to sleep. So, sometimes I'm not as good as being kind of intelligent in myself and reading that and saying, all right, probably not the best day to go heavy on legs. Maybe a better day to go for a walk, do some recovery stuff. So all that comes into play. Those are things I try to help my clients with. Unfortunately, sometimes I'm not as good as with myself as I am with them. And so I think as coaches, that's where I reach out to others. That's where I use other coaches. I have a therapist I work with. As far as my stress management and mental health and things like that, and try to put in plans and things in place that I can do with that. So I just want to share a little bit of my story, my struggles. I understand completely what everyone out there is going through in those same situations, and I try to use that experience on myself to help with my clients and coaching, and what has worked for me, what doesn't work for me, and figure out what if some of those things can work for them in the same situations. So hopefully this helps some of y'all out there. If you have any questions, reach out to me, John Paul at Guidry PT.